Welcome back, my lords and ladies, to the Cast Beyond the Wall. We are your guide to all things Westerosi, and we're here to bring you a review, analysis, and fan v fan debate on each episode of HBO's hit show, Game of Thrones. This week we're discussing Season 6, Episode 4, Book of a Stranger. My name's Caleb Masters, and there ain't no reunion like a Stark reunion.
It's a good time to be alive, I think.
Honestly, I believe there was a much better reunion in this episode, but we'll get to that later.
Shut up. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Oh my God.
He's going to start singing sea shanties at us, guys.
Better watch out for those sea shanties.
I have a list of shanties.
Well, sir, the man who is not so thrilled about the Stark reunion, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Austin Lucari. I'm Austin Lucari, and it's got to be said, guys, we're living in a post-Martin Westeros, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Ooh, post-Martin. Has that been coined yet? You need to get on that before some other guy takes it.
Yeah, make
write
like
post-Martinism.
A think piece about it and
yeah,
submit it to Screen Crush.
That's right. I know the editor there. By that I mean I have his email. That's about as good as I got.
Well, but we also have a website,
goodtrashmedia.com, and we happen to take all the pitches for all the think pieces.
Yes.
As long as you know what you're talking about.
Right.
We're gonna have to get a ghostwriter, I think.
Sir, my other co-host, sir, introduce yourself.
I am Daniel Stoll, and also like Caleb, this season is definitely my season. The Starks are here, they're back, and they're going to take over everything pretty much.
I didn't say I didn't say I was that optimistic, okay? I didn't say they were going to stake everything.
And this show is finally going to have a happy ending.
Whatever, dude. I don't know. I think you've been...
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
Hey, we'll get to Ramsey later.
All right, now we are joined by another voice around the table this week. We are a Good Trash Media podcast this season. We are hosted by our good friends at Good Trash Media. So what better way to continue our partnership with our host, Good Trash Media, than to actually have a host and founder of goodtrashmedia.com. Ma'am, can you introduce yourself?
My name's Alexandra Bohannon, and it's very, very exhilarating to see Danny actually do anything.
Anything.
So, yes.
That's good.
Yes, Danny is probably, I've been with my girl since, season 1. I'm rooting for her really hard because I want her to be the person that takes over Westeros.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I know.
She's a fangirl.
I'm
Watch
a Danny fangirl. It's all the way, baby. So, yeah.
Listen, if you're a woman who likes Danny, you're automatically a fangirl, Alex. That's how Game of Thrones fan base works, okay?
That's real, I guess. And
can I be a fangirl?
Misogynist.
I want to be a fangirl.
You could be a fangirl with me.
Let's all fangirl out together, because this had all the naysayers fangirling out together.
Yep.
And it was
episode
wonderful.
Was a great episode to be a girl. So
it was. And also, if you're a weak-willed, sniveling man, probably a good episode for you, too.
All right, well, that's right. She has emerged from the flames. She burned the rest of the founders of Good Trash Media to the ground. Apparently, she's now the leader, I guess.
That's right.
So, Alex, we're really glad to have you on and really excited to talk Game of Thrones with you.
Yeah, me too.
So, like I said, this year we're podcasting along with our gracious host at on the Good Trash Media Network. Now, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time or have listened to us in past years, our host at Good Trash Media, it's a website dedicated to taking your experience watching TV and film beyond just the screen and onto your listening device, and into your living rooms and into your kitchens and wherever you have that conversation at. Why? Because at Good Trash Media, we believe that TV and film is so much more than just 90 minutes and a bucket of popcorn, or in this case, 60 minutes and a flask of Night Watchman beer.
Ooh, apparently not very good. The Yelp reviews are in, and it's not good.
Well, you'd think after all those years up the wall doing shit, they know how to brew some beer, right?
Well, I mean, I think she was just reacting to how strong it was, because my take on that scene was, he's like, well, we brew this pretty, stoutly and effectively, because how else do you stay warm in the sub-zero climes up there? So
I wish Jon Snow just would have turned at the screen and Kit Harington would have said, with his accent, "Yeah, this is the bottle of the Night's Watch. You can buy it at your local Alma Gang brewery." So if you guys have been listening and to our podcast this season, you have your opinions on Game of Thrones, we want to talk to you. In fact, we had such a message come in from the airwaves of the internet this week. We had some listener feedback that I'm really excited to talk about. So we received a message on our website. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You too can comment your opinions on this week's episode or podcast right below in the comments. We received a comment from Mandy Robinson, friend of the show, a longtime listener. Really excited to hear you chiming in today, Mandy. Now, she wrote us a very nice and thoughtful comment, and she was actually responding to our kind of take on Tommen as kind of this weakling, because you guys were bastards, were hating on him, and I'm just all like, well, he's a kid. Now, what she seems to think here, I'll go ahead and read her message. She said, now, in regards to your comments about this week's episode about a quote-unquote weak Tommen, we see he has very few scenes with anyone who actually is trying to mentor him to be king. She points out that there was that really great scene between her and Tywin last year, where he kind of gave him some lessons. But since then, since old Gramps Lannister, kicked the bucket, he's gotten nothing but really poor, ultra biased advice from his mom and his dad. And she can't. She believes the reason he's so weak is just because he hasn't had anyone there to show him how to be king properly. Everyone's trying to use them. So basically, I think what she's getting at is everyone's trying to use him as a pawn, or they're trying to control him versus actually teach him how to be a better ruler. So I don't know what you guys think about that. Does that give Tommen a pass?
And she's totally right there. With the exception of Tywin, no one's really spent much time with him. We saw a couple scenes actually in this episode where people are still probably trying to use him as they try to use every king of Westeros, but people are trying to work with him on things, and I think help him a little bit. But it is fair to say that, especially given that Joffrey was the kind of the heir to the throne throughout much of Tommen's life, that no one ever really expected Tommen to have to rule. So he probably never got much advice. When he did finally take the throne, he was very young, and probably very, very ill-equipped to handle the weight of things that he has to deal with.
Yeah, I totally agree with that comment. It actually kind of parallels what happened in real life. If you guys have seen the movie The King's Speech or are aware of that history, I mean, that's exactly what happened in the case of was he Edward? I can't remember. It's
Colin Firth.
Yeah, Colin Firth.
I think it's Edward, but I want to just in case.
But
just for
his
safety.
older brother was the one being groomed to be king all of these years, and then he's like, "I'm just gonna marry a commoner, adios." And so then he has to then pick up the reins, and has not been groomed since infancy or his adolescence to be king. So yeah, I totally would agree with that. That kind of grooming is pretty important, and it makes a lot of sense why Tommen might have to be doing some really quick growing up right now.
Right, and there's no one really there. He's never had a good example. I mean, Joffrey was the king. He probably didn't know his dad very well. And let's face it, Robert wasn't exactly the greatest example of a king either. So not really. I mean, honestly, his best example was probably Tyrion, who he wasn't really the king. So what Alex is saying is Barbossa needs to come in and teach the guy and mentor him on how to be the king and how to talk like a king.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mandy Robinson from Seattle, for commenting in.
She's from Seattle?
She is from Seattle.
Hi.
She lives up in the Seattle parts. If you want to be like Mandy and you want to talk to us, because we want to talk to you guys, you too can comment below and give us your thoughts on the episode, and we'll make sure to read it on next week's show. Or if you want to reach out to us to talk to us elsewhere on the social media, you can find us at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia, or head on over to Twitter at good_trash. That's how we want to talk to you guys. If you don't follow either one of those pages on social media, Good Trash Media, you should definitely go over and like and follow us. That would be a big help for us. And then give us your feedback so we can read it on next week's show. Enough of the conversating, guys. We're here to get into the meat and potatoes of this week's episode, The Book of a Stranger.
Sansa has escaped Winterfell. She won't be safe with the Boltons after her.
I risked everything for you, and you betrayed me.
I'm sorry.
Stop saying that.
Marjorie will repent her sins before the city.
That cannot happen.
I agree.
When does she return?
Soon.
The Temple of the Dosh Kalin. That's where they'll have taken her.
All right, guys, really quickly, kind of give some thumbs up, thumbs down reactions here. How did we feel about the episode? Austin Lucari, let's start with you. How did you like The Book of a Stranger?
I absolutely loved this episode. Best episode of the season so far, in my opinion. Hit on all my favorite characters, which is great. But I think importantly, we see a really, really strong trend of the female characters in this show really just taking things over and taking charge of things, and very much a brother sister dynamic going on in a lot of these scenes too, which is also very interesting to see. I don't want to kind of talk about everything here. Daniel, what did you think?
My first reaction, actually, I thought it was a pretty good episode, but the more I thought about it, the more I really, really enjoyed this episode. And I think, Austin, you hit on the key point there. A lot of strong female characters showed up in this episode, and we'll talk about all of that. So I really enjoyed that aspect, this episode. And you hit on it too with the brother and sister. All the sisters are kind of taking control of their situations. They're being the strong character in that relationship. So yeah, I think you hit on it. That was one of my favorite parts of this episode, and I really enjoyed it. Don't know if I would say it's the best of the season. I really enjoyed episode 2, but yeah, this was a very, very fantastic episode.
All right, Dale, I appreciate that. I respect the man for his opinion, even when he is dead wrong, but it's okay. Respectable. Respectable. I want to hear from our guest host, Alexandra Bohannon. What did you think of this week's episode, The Book of a Stranger?
Well, I think this is going to turn into an echo chamber because, like my fellow co-hosts, I also really enjoyed this episode, especially for its excellent depiction of female characters. Even when we get to the end scene, when we have Daenerys standing in the fire, power, fire, fire in her eyes, fire behind her, and also naked. We don't really get a lot of the male gaze objectifying her in terms of the fact that she is naked and she has really nice boobs. But it's just the fact that she has nice boobs is there. It's not like ogling her.
Well, yeah, she's a beautiful woman. I mean, a goddess essentially, which is what they were going for. But it's not like, oh God, let's get all these shots of her boobs.
Yeah, it's not sexualized. Not at all. I definitely got that really strong, folklore type goddess vibe from that scene. I loved everything about this. I really liked what Daniel said specifically, and something I didn't actually think about. Of course, I picked up on the brother-sister dynamics. We have these 3 pairs of siblings with very different relationships, but there's a really delightful universality of how siblings interact if you have kind of like a more traditional sibling relationship. We don't see much incest in this episode, so they all seem very...
It's incest light.
Incest light, yeah. But I didn't really notice about how the female sibling seems to be taking charge of the male sibling, which is a very fascinating role reversal to me. Yeah, definitely enjoyed all of that for sure. I'd say that my biggest qualm, it certainly doesn't knock this off the pedestal of being my favorite episode of the season by any means, but I really didn't... The whole Osha thing, I wasn't a fan of how that was carried out. I thought that was... I didn't really think that was necessarily within her character to act that way, because I think she's a lot smarter than that.
Yes.
That seemed the whole time. I know she was doing it to bait him out in terms of getting that knife and whatever, but she didn't think that he was going to get a knife into her.
Well, and before she's done that before, but when she's done it before, she's been more methodical and she knows exactly who her targets are versus this guy where she has never met him before.
Stranger. She thought she could just manipulate him and was totally wrong. I wasn't really a fan on how that was handled, but I'm sure we'll get into more of that anon. Overall, really like this. It was an excellent episode, probably my favorite of season 6 so far.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said. This is my favorite episode of season 6, and I promise, Baelish aside, I'm not fanboying out a little bit. He was in there. That is a part. That is a part. Okay, she was okay. Okay, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. Who was Baelish for Halloween? This motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I regret nothing. I regret.
Don't
nothing
regret it because
that was so awesome.
Yes, it was.
So Baelish aside, I thought this was I think this was the best episode of the season because episode 2, which Daniel pointed out as his favorite, was also a good episode. I don't think there's been a bad episode this season so far at all. But there was a lot happening, and I didn't have the emotional weight I did in that episode that I did in this episode. I was like, I was shocked that Roose died kind of the way he did, and I knew the guy was going to get thrown off the bridge, and that was still kind of cool. But this is like, freaking Stark reunion, guys. Holy mother of God. Like, talk about emotion, all the feels. I mean, we've been waiting for this since episode 1. So yeah, no, it was amazing. And then you have You have just more of those. You had that big epic moment with Dany at the end, which is just like, oh my god, it reminds us all why we care about Daenerys in the first place.
Yep.
And all of that aside, though, my biggest point I want to hit on, because I don't want to just regurgitate what's already been said. It's all wonderful. What I'd like to add is I feel like we are finally in Act 3 of Game of Thrones, the series, because we're finally starting to see, after at the end of Act 2, which gives you, season 3 and 4, you have, and even 5 to some extent, you have your heroes getting chased up the tree, so to speak. They get backed into a corner. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite. He's shipped off, and terrible things happen. But ultimately, while I don't think this is going to have a quote-unquote happy ending for the series, I do think we are starting to see the quote-unquote good guys, the characters we're rooting for, triumph more than we're used to seeing. And sometimes it might be a little predictable, sure, but it all feels really earned and respectable. And I there's something really fulfilling about that. And this episode for me really hit that home. I was like, oh yeah, well, this is why we love Jon Snow, and this is why we love the Starks, and this is why we like Daenerys. I really feel like we are, if it's true that there's only going to be anywhere from 15 to 20 episodes left after this year, we definitely, I am really starting to feel that in a good way. With this episode in particular is really hitting home for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. We're definitely heading that direction, but I am not ready to call this Act 3 until Dany steps foot in Westeros. Then it could officially be Act 3.
Austin, what are you talking about? That's the epilogue, my man. That's the epilogue.
That's over.
She has 3 dragons.
And she's like, what? I missed the party?
That's okay. You might be trolling right now, but I don't care, because that could actually legitimately happen. Perhaps, everyone is so busy slaughtering each other that by the time that their resources are so exhausted and everyone's so dead that Dany just comes in with her Dothraki, 3 dragons, and all of her Unsullied, and just like anyone that's still alive kills them and takes over very easily. Yeah. I like that point. And it makes me think that we're actually I feel like we can actually get in the conversation as fans and critics, people who are criticizing this also. Like, we can actually start to predict the end game, which is weird because this entire series I'm always like, I can't even tell you where I know vaguely how this is going to end in some epic battle royale, but I have no idea exactly who the players are. I feel like we're at the point where we can start to surmise, all right, here's where this is going for the big push, because I feel like we're getting the setup for the final push right now, even though it might be a couple years out. Like, we are getting, here's Jon Snow with his army in the north. We've got Baelish with his army in the north, and you've got King's Landing literally just in shambles. And then you've got Daenerys finally acclimating this huge-ass army that hopefully this time she'll do something with. So that's really exciting that we can actually start to talk about this. Like, okay, now we know where this is all going to head for like one big epic battle thing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I agree. Heading into the end game, and we all know the one man who's going to be there in the end game.
Yes,
your favorite character in the
Samwell Tarly.
Oh god, no, Caleb. Trying to throw you a segue here, and you just smash it with a big fat Sam butt.
So about Petyr Baelish.
Thank you, Alex, for that segue.
So blunt.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? We're starting with Petyr Baelish first because we haven't talked about him in this show for like freaking ever, and I want to talk about some motherfucking Petyr Baelish. And I want to talk about how this scene perfectly articulates why I love Petyr Baelish, right? He steps off, he's all like, yeah, I'm back, guys. Robin, I brought you a gift because remember, you love me. And for some reason, Robin loves him. He's Uncle Peter. And then you have Royce, who's all like, he's been smart this entire time, by the way. He's like, yeah, so I thought you were taking Sansa Stark somewhere else to the Fingers. And he's like, well, I was until, I got hijacked. And he just totally puts it back on him. He's like, well, you're the only person who knew that I was taking Sansa Stark there, and I got ambushed. So, I mean, it's on you. And then as soon as that Royce kind of starts to assert himself a little more, he's like, I don't know, Robin, what do you think about this guy? Might be a traitor. And he's like, can we throw him out the moon door?
Can we throw him out the moon door, Uncle Peter?
Oh my God. It was so beautiful. And he's got Robin just wrapped around his finger. And unless he does something incredibly stupid, I don't think that's going to change at all. I mean, like hyper stupid.
Right.
So it was really great though. And he's basically like, well, I don't like that Sansa has been mistreated by the Boltons. So how about we go ahead and march our army right on over there to figure out what's going on?
Caleb called it.
Yeah,
Caleb called it. I give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
This is guys, Jon Snow teaming with Petyr Baelish. This is like the greatest Game of Thrones matchup ever.
Yeah.
And with Sansa with Jon Snow right now, this all could work.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a beautiful thing. So that's really exciting. But enough of my fanning boying out over here. Like, now, Alex, what'd you make of the scene?
Well, to go back to your point, one would assume, considering Robin's really not informal reaction to Baelish and to just his arrival, that this isn't news, that he comes bearing gifts and then, buttering him up. So he's probably been doing this for God, however long that little dude has been there. Although now he's a kind of tall. All of the little tiny men have grown into like taller men, and it's really strange.
He's real creepy looking too.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Kylo Ren, Kylo Ren's like strange little cousin or something.
So Adam Driver is going to play Robin Aaron in the sequel series.
They both have like really weird Play-Doh faces. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, they do. And then like the weird hair and yeah. So, I thought this was a really great little snapshot into what's going on with Baelish. What about you all? What did you all think?
It was a good scene. It was really nice to see Petyr Baelish again. I don't think it really like showed us anything new, more of a touch base kind of thing.
Right.
Peter's still doing his thing. The one big thing that was finally confirmed is Petyr Baelish got this army so that he could go north. It does seem like his full intention is essentially being Warden of the North through Sansa as the proxy. Though Sansa, I don't know if she'll end up being that or not. Maybe it's Jon. Might still be Sansa since Jon's, a bastard. But other than that, it's just a really good scene. Just kind of reaffirms the power he holds over people, and especially Robin.
I really like this scene too. I think this scene, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really realized what Littlefinger's plan was, I feel like, with Sansa. So it seems like he set it up to where, if Sansa were to die and the Boltons were to kill her, he could say, oh my gosh, we got ambushed and they took her and then they killed her. Let's go take revenge. And if she escapes, oh my gosh, they captured her, we escaped. Let's go get her and go back and get revenge. So he set it up to where no matter what happened, he could get this army, go north, and go take Winterfell. So I think that really, we know Baelish is this great mastermind schemer kind of person, but I really liked that. I feel like I really realized what he was doing with this scene. But yeah, like you guys said, there's not a whole lot of new information here. Just really setting up for the team up with Sansa and Jon as they're going to go and have a fight for Winterfell. So it's really exciting. It'll be interesting to see how Sansa responds. I know we've talked a little bit before a few earlier episodes on whether or not, they're going to trust him or not. They have no. I think that's going to happen for the sake of story. But I don't know. I think there will be a little bit of hesitation maybe on Sansa's part. I think she definitely needs to be skeptical. But yeah, it was a good catch up scene for Baelish.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. As you were saying that, I was thinking that theory simultaneously about how he's literally just, or figuratively, chess pieced his way across the board to get, all of these people to go on his behalf to defeat whoever's holding Winterfell. I don't even know if it would have to be the Boltons.
No, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't matter who it is. As long as he gets it, he is. And that's what I'm saying. He doesn't have a lose scenario that ties directly to him. So his whole thing was, say Cersei and the Lannisters do take King's Landing back. Well, he's going to go take the Boltons out, right? Oh, and Jon Snow just happens to show up, or whatever happens. Oh, well, then he's on her side. But because remember, that was the circumstances in which he went was based on Cersei saying that, oh my God, the Boltons have Sansa. I need an army to go get her back. And now circumstances have changed a little bit. But flip side of the token, if you remember, he actually met with Bolton last year where he also gave Bolton some information on Cersei. So he set it up with, well, that doesn't work out. I'm on Bolton's team. And he also told Sansa back when Stannis was marching on Winterfell that he was betting on Stannis. So this is a man who has literally put himself in a win-win situation from just about every corner. And that's why it's brilliant. Although, Austin, I think you're shooting his ambitions shy. He does not want to be Warden of the North. He wants to rule Westeros. Now, Warden of the North might be it's a stepping stone for him. Just like he's used so many stepping stones to get to as much power as he has right now. And it'll be interesting. And I'm as a guy who's kind of sort of rooting for him, evil as he might be, I am legitimately curious how far he's going to make it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he actually does make it all the way because this is Game of Thrones. But I'm interested to see where he's going to slip up, if he slips up.
Yeah, you never know who will just cinch the Republican nomination out of nowhere, and then who will go to the general with no contested election or convention.
Oh God!
Oh my God! If Sam ends up being king, I'm just done. I'm gonna burn down my house.
The one you just
gonna
bought.
find George R. R. Martin. I'm gonna feed him a bunch of carrots until he can't take it anymore.
Carrots?
Yeah, I feel like he doesn't need a lot of carrots.
Specifically carrots, not just like general vegetables, mixed vegetables. No, it's carrots.
Just carrots.
No, just carrots.
Just gonna give him vitamin C poisoning or something.
Vitamin C poisoning. Carrots are very carb heavy. All right. So moving on to the other storyline in the North. That's right, guys. We're going to start in the North as opposed to end of the North this week. We're mixing it up, finally. Something else epic happened somewhere else, finally. We're going to talk about the scene with Osha. I'm really glad that you brought that up in your review, Alex, because I actually really hated this scene for a lot of different reasons. I feel like it was pointless. I feel like Osha is smarter than this.
Yes.
And guys, we get it. We get it. Ramsey Bolton's a psychopath. We really get it. If we didn't get it the first 3 seasons he was on the show, we didn't get it last season when he raped Sansa, or this season when he killed his dad and then murdered a baby to dogs. And in case you didn't know, he's a real bad dude, and we should definitely not like him. And I'm just over it. We all understand. And you know what's kind of sad about this is Ramsey is a really interesting character, but they're going too far. Joffrey, I didn't ever feel like they pushed Joffrey's evilness on us this often, this much. Maybe
Not
I'm wrong.
often,
Maybe,
no.
maybe
he had
not this
equally
often.
evil scenes, like the crossbow scene being the worst one by far.
Oh yeah, we had the prostitutes beat each other too. That was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had some rough scenes, but they were much fewer and further between.
Yeah, it's in terms of there's a lot of contemplations about the impact of showing versus telling in terms of like visual storytelling, and like a lot of filmmakers discovered through their careers that the more impactful like scenes of gore and of intense violence, whether it's has a lot of psychological components or it's just like I'm gonna noodle your arm like you do in Green Room or whatever, it's just it's the fact that you don't show everything always, and then whenever you do see, you're like, huh. But this is like it's you're almost numb to it by now, and it's really sad, and it makes me really upset because like this kind of stuff usually really bothers me, like especially like tinged sexual violence with death and murder, but I wasn't super moved, and that makes me really sad.
It felt like a kind of low impact kind of filler scene. There wasn't really a whole lot of point to it, and the disappointing thing about it is to make a filler scene, they killed off what I consider to be a very interesting character.
Yeah,
in a way that wasn't really respectful of all the accomplishments she's made up until this point.
Yeah, I feel like she got cheated. I really do.
It honestly feels like a contract killing. Like they're like, nah, we're kind of done with you. We don't want to pay you anymore. So can you go?
Well, and the thing was, there were scenes, I think it was last season, maybe even 2 seasons ago, where they did try to humanize Ramsey enough to make him more interesting, but like it's gotten to the point where I don't really care about that anymore.
Well,
he is, in my opinion, despite the fact that they tried to give him more dimensions, they boiled him down to just a purely 2-dimensional cartoon bad guy, and that is something the show has not done historically, and I'm really disappointed by
I think what they tried to do a couple episodes ago when, and I can't remember her name, but his girlfriend was killed, right? At the end of last season and the beginning of this season where we actually see it. I think they tried to make that scene like representative of the last shred of humanity that Ramsey had kind of leaving, where he mourns for her and then immediately kind of almost snaps and says, feed her to the dog. She's nothing anymore. I think that was supposed to be symbolic of whatever like compassion he had left in him, totally gone now. And so I think now we're seeing kind of a Ramsey that's truly like off his hinges, just totally unpredictable. I mean, sadly, from storytelling terms, actually very predictable, but one that it basically it has no longer has any compassion for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point, Austin. Well, we have a lot of other things in the North to talk about today. We could bash on this guy all day, or talk about Baelish all day, but I want to get to that. There's tons of other super interesting stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and move on to the moment, the crazy awesome moment at the wall. We get a brief moment of seeing Jon kind of talk to Ed about why he's done with the Nice Watch, saying that he did sacrifice his life. So good call on you, Dalton, from our season premiere episode where you said that you think he's going to leave the Night's Watch based on his fulfillment of his vow. That does appear to be the case. But the more interesting tidbit here is that, holy shit, guys, I did not expect Sansa and Brienne to walk to those doors, at least not this episode. Holy smokes.
Yeah. I thought that would be like a season, like an episode 7 type thing. I thought walking to the wall might take a little more time, but they were fast traveling, obviously.
Daniel, you're the Stark fanboy here. You're the unbelievable fanboy. Like you've been praying for this day since like season 1, dude. What'd you make of the scene?
I mean, this was a beautiful scene. You see them see each other and they realize that, is that they kind of have this like, is this real life type of, feeling, and then they just embrace each other. And it was a really great moment, and they actually have some really cool moments in their whole time that we spend with them up in the wall. But yeah, it was a really great moment. And what I find so interesting about this is they have never actually been on screen together before. If you guys remember, all the way back in season 1, they were both in Winterfell at the same time, right before Jon left for the wall and Sansa left for King's Landing, and they've never actually appeared on screen before, which is interesting in and of itself. But you really see that just being with someone that you considered family, that they have not been able to experience that for such a long time, how much it truly meant to them. So yeah, I think this was just a beautiful scene, and I think that the dialogue that they end up having is really cool. It really shows how far Sansa's come. I don't know. What did you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, she admitted to being horrible, right, guys? I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for her because remember, everyone hated Sansa, right?
Yep, sure did.
She had no one to admit it to before. This is the first person that kind of knew her. It's interesting in that she's kind of attached herself for survival purposes to a lot of strangers that don't really know anything about her, and this is the first like friendly face she's seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I one thing I really like about this scene too is that there's this implication that Sansa didn't really treat Jon very well or appreciate each other. Two characters of the family members, the two that probably connected the least, because I imagine Sansa's probably, as the oldest sister, at least stereotypically, she's probably taken after mom a lot, has that kind of like big sister complex, watching her mom.
She kind of got the lady grooming of the thing, of like, if we're going back to talking about birth order and everything. I mean, she was the one that everyone was like, okay, we're going to marry her off to a lord and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was just implied that she was going to be kind of taking after this more maternal role while Arya goes and dicks about with swords, even though nobody wanted her to. So yeah, I mean, she probably had very little reason to be with Jon Snow. Actually, she probably thought...
I assume she probably treated him pretty poorly, just like her mom.
I'm sure. And I'm also, besides the whole mom thing, I'm sure that she also considered it, being around him kind of lowered her station. I mean, it probably, having a father with a bastard that lives with you. I mean, who has that? I mean, it's kind of like a bit of dishonor on the family that everyone talks about, but nobody, it's like the gossip, and she probably felt that, at court.
You see two characters who really, I'm sure Jon didn't really care much for her either, but two characters who were probably on the opposite end of the spectrums, who did not appreciate each other at all before, who now they are the world to each other. Like we've got to stick together, and pray to God they do not split up. You can't do any more Stark split up. So it was really, really powerful to see how sometimes even the family you might not love, under the circumstances that they've been through, family still runs further and deeper than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's blood is thicker than water. Even though these two weren't necessarily best friends, when it comes down to it, they're family, and so they're gonna embrace it. They have that embrace, and they're gonna love each other and help each other out.
Yeah, so we got some of the best character stuff I think we've gotten from either of those characters in a while right there in that moment. And it was a warm, happy feeling. The moment Sansa looked happy. We don't see that very often. Jon looked happy. We don't see that very often. It's just people being happy on the show. It's wonderful.
And strange.
All these good things are happening. We're seeing all these wonderful things. Dany and Jon and Sansa. We better be something terrible is about to happen at the end of the season, and we should be scared, guys. We should not be happy right now. We should be scared.
Sansa initially pressures Jon, say, hey, we got to go back home. We got to go take Winterfell back. You're the last remaining Stark. And he's like, nope, done fighting until Jon receives a message from Ramsey. Now, again, I'm not going to beat this to the ground, but yes, hey guys, Ramsey's a really despicable monster who writes really nasty letters. He's like the Donald Trump of Westeros. He just he says mean things. Ramsey Bolton writing letters is like Donald Trump tweeting stuff. Like you're just like, oh God, just shut up, stop writing. And Jon Snow gets the right idea. He stops reading and he puts it down. But just like the rest of America, Sansa's like, no, I got to read the rest of these freaking Donald Trump tweets. So she keeps on going, and of course it gets worse. But it's not until he finds out that Rickon is being held captive that motivates Jon to look over at Tormund, and he's all like, how many troops you have? How many soldiers you have? 2,000. We think Ramsey might have 5,000, maybe, according to what Sansa heard. So odds still aren't great, but man, we've got some wildlings, including a giant. So that's all I'm saying, guys. Giants taking on Winterfell. So yeah, Jon is going to be heading right on down to the wall, it appears.
What I really loved about this scene, though, was it's kind of what I talked about earlier. It's Sansa's, she's the one taking control in that situation. It's not like Jon standing up, we're going to go do this, follow me. It's Sansa saying, if you're not coming with me, I'm going anyway. And I'm going to do what I think is the right thing to do. And it's her taking control of her life, which we talked about already. She hasn't really done that up until this season. So that is really awesome to see from her, the growth of her character. And then she is inspiring those to come along with her. So that was my favorite part of this scene. And Sansa has quickly become one of my favorite characters, specifically because of this scene and some of the other scenes from this season. So yeah, I really love that element that she's the one that's pushing it.
Daniel, I love it. I'm glad that was your favorite moment from this scene, because my favorite moment was when we got the next great power couple in Game of Thrones.
Oh my God! No.
Yes. We got Tormund chomping on the bread, Iron Brienne with his creepy big red bearded eyes.
The eyes are red bearded.
Well, have you seen those eyebrows? Have you seen those eyebrows?
Oh, so his eyebrows are tiny beards.
So his eyebrows are tiny. Okay, red-bearded Santa Claus is eyeing Brienne, okay, and she just looks very uncomfortable.
As she should.
Very much so. I mean, Tormund's a fun dude, but I don't know if he's eyeing me. I'm pretty concerned.
He just has this feeling of like he's never seen a woman like that before, and he's just like awestruck. And it's so funny.
So the real question is, do we ship it? Is this going to happen before the show's over?
I do not ship Tormund Brienne because I ship Brienne Jaime.
Oh snap!
Look,
shit! We forgot about that one, guys.
No, it's amazing.
That is amazing. That's a good point.
Look, if we got Ygritte and Jon, we can certainly have Tormund and Brienne.
I mean, it could happen, but do I want it to happen?
Yes.
No,
yes, we do.
I don't.
Tormund deserves to be happy.
I don't feel like Brienne would let it happen. I think
that's right.
And then she'd just like kill him or something.
Have you seen the charm on that beard? Have you seen the charm on that beard? Okay.
If
beards are awful.
If there's anyone worthy of Brienne, it's got to be Tormund. He's the only man out there manly enough to handle Brienne. What could be their couple name?
Bremond?
I think you could do something with like a cheese pun in there. Like Brie is cheese, and like there might be is Tormund. No, I can't get anything out of it. But I mean, my thing
we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
We'll workshop this, you guys. Just because there's an opportunity in television for a heteronormative pairing on screen doesn't mean we need to stick all the penises in all of the vaginas. So I'm not really a fan of Brienne, really with anybody. I think she should be her strong, independent woman self who don't need no man.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I think there needs to be.
I mean, overall, I think that's probably honestly the most realistic option. And she's a knight, right?
Yeah.
So that would fit, and I'm cool with that. But if we're gonna, just play the game, and the writers are playing with us.
Oh,
so,
sure. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was a great little bit.
It was wonderful. Nice little bit of levity.
Okay, before we move out of the north, I want to hit very briefly, on a quick scene between Davos confronting Melisandre about Shireen. So he's like, yeah, what happened? What happened? And then Brienne's all like, I know what happened. I killed Stannis Baratheon.
Nailed it.
Talk about a mood killer.
I mean, it was basically Brienne saying, I killed your king and I liked it.
Yes. That should be the subcolon on this episode title. I killed your king and I liked it.
I don't want to belabor that point too much because it was a very brief scene, but I think it's one of those we're going to follow up on that later. So I think it was worth noting.
Sure.
All right, Austin, we're going to get this out of the way quickly. Okay, bud? Mm-hmm. Quickly. We went to the Iron Islands. Again, Theon has returned home and his sister Yara is pretty pissed off.
Right.
She's pretty upset because she lost a bunch of men trying to save him a couple of seasons back.
True.
And
she wasn't trying to save Theon then. She was trying to save Reek, let's be clear.
Okay, yeah. She was trying to save Reek, and she was trying to intimidate him into getting him to say what he said. Pretty much, right? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. I mean, look, Theon, she was really kind of scared that Theon was trying to become the king when really she should be. Theon never really wanted that, I don't think, in this scene. Like,
no, not
once. Not concerned about that at all. He just wants to belong somewhere. That's all he wants. He never felt like he belonged with the Starks. Theon's just looking for a place to belong. He wants to throw his support behind his family because that's all he ultimately wants.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a, hey, Theon made it. Yara and... Sorry. Yeah, I mean, this was just sort of a, Theon made it, and she kind of was angry at him. I don't know if she fully understands, what happened. I don't know if anyone can really fully understand what happened to him. So I felt like she was kind of overly harsh on him. But again, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. We get another scene where a sister or a female character is kind of in charge of that situation. She's in charge of that relationship. Granted, given what's happened to Theon, it's completely understandable. He is completely broken and ththings like that. But you get this comparison of a strong woman and a weak or broken man at this point. Not saying that he shouldn't be broken. We get that comparison again. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, I feel like she's overly harsh on him. So I am a little bit sympathetic towards him. But I don't know. That's kind of how I felt. What about you guys?
No, I mean, I agree, especially upon her. She did feel a little harsh. I can maybe understand her trepidation about, because from her perspective, she's looking at the shenanigans that happened at King's Landing as like power play, I guess, and that's how it came across. But even though he doesn't really want the throne or the iron.
The salt throne, I think is what they're calling it. They changed the name from the books.
Yeah, I thought that Yara was a little harsh about this in the scene. I really enjoyed her little stinger. I know this is jumping ahead a little bit, but, Iron Islands. I did like her bit in the stinger. It looks like they're going forward with her ascending or trying to ascend to the full throne.
Yeah, well, I mean... So she wants they're calling it the Salt Throne, I guess. It's really weird because in the books it's got this badass name called the Sea Stone Chair. I don't know why they changed.
Stone Chair.
It just has more of a ring to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It does. I agree with you.
I don't know why they changed. But anyway, I think she just saw... I guess she's just trying to confirm that Theon's not going to be a threat because as a political entity, the fact that he exists in Pike while the Kingsmoot when the Kingsmoot's about to happen is a threat to everyone who wants that, even if he doesn't want it. So she is just confirming that he does not want it because she suspects maybe that's why he's sneaking back in. You're right, Austin. I think you're totally right. I think more than anything, he just wants to feel like he belongs somewhere, that he's home, and that he can just live out the rest of his life. That's all he really wants, I think.
And this is me not having any knowledge. I haven't really addressed this, but I'm not a book reader. I haven't read any of. I read books, but I haven't read any of the Game of Thrones novels. So I'm also coming from a lack of that kind of outstanding universe.
You and Austin share a bond.
Yes. So in terms of It is an important bond. In terms of the King's Moot, I was just wondering, would it be possible, just because he's there in birth order and birthright and everything, even though he doesn't want it, someone could like put him forward for it?
Yes.
Okay. See, and that makes a lot of sense then why she would be like, you don't want this. And then I could see it happening that shenanigans happened and someone puts his name forward in the King's Moot.
They're going to goblet to fire the thing, right?
Yeah. Goblet of fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, basically, I feel like she's whoever he throws his support behind will, for the sheer sake of titles, will give that person a little more clout when they come to run. I imagine. It looks like we're going to find out more about that next week, based on the teaser, which is really exciting. King's Moon's been something I've been very excited to see for a very long time. But yeah, I just think this is to confirm that she's just trying to confirm all that is in her, that he is not going to be against her. It is very harsh, and I find it kind of heartbreaking that like her initial reaction to him returning is almost borderline hatred, anger.
It's a tough love thing. I think remember who they are and the culture that they come from. I think they're very much like, she's trying to test, are you still Theon or are you still Reek?
Fair point. He breaks into tears. Poor guy. I don't care what he did. He doesn't deserve this. Okay. Well, Austin, I hate to pull you away from the Greyjoy action, but I think we're going to see some more of them next week. So
okay.
good news for you.
Good enough for me.
You got to see a glimpse of it. But let's move on to King's Landing. And guys, King's Landing, not quite the main storyline that it used to be. It's kind of getting downplayed a lot these days. However, we did get the return of Marjorie Tyrell.
Yay!
She's been MIA. I think we got one very brief scene with her in the premiere. But otherwise, I don't think we've seen her since like season 7 or episode 7 or 8 of last year. So she's been kind of out of the picture. And basically, it's her turn. She's got to make the walk of shame, or whatever the High Sparrow calls it, the walk of shame. So the High Sparrow shares his personal experience. All right, and I'll admit, I said I believed I believed in the guy's religious experience, despite him being a monster and using it as a tool to gain power. I said I still believe that he is a religious zealot who really believes that. Now, this changes it all. When you go back to the origin of his faith, this is the most bullshit, I found Jesus story ever. Oh, I saw how bad the world was, and I just decided one day it wasn't for me. I'm like, listen, dude, you don't just change. It doesn't. Usually when people have religious experiences, it's because something really traumatic happened to them, and that makes sense. This is it's like the most generic I found God story ever, and so for me it really confirmed that, you guys are totally right. You guys were right, and I was wrong. This guy is not legit in his faith at all.
I was like, we need to make sure that's recorded. Caleb just said he was wrong. Make sure that we get that in there.
I think it's very important that we include that. No, but did Marjorie call him on that when she said, you're just quoting that book that I just heard about? Now, she called him up front on it, and then he's like, well, let me actually tell you my personal experience, because she said, what made you just decide to walk and become a religious man? Right,
and then
the cobbler thing and all that.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough. I had forgotten that he did actually go into a real story, potentially. Might not be. Look, this one, we talked about this a while ago. He's a fraud. He's someone who's just trying to gain control and power, just like everybody else in Westeros. There are no sincere people in Westeros. They don't exist.
It's kind of a little muddy. You see her, she goes and we get to see her brother, Loras. She gets to visit her brother Loras, which is what I felt like was kind of a moment for her. But it's kind of muddy because she never says that she's going to do it, but then we cut to later. Another one of the council meetings, like, oh, she's going to do it. So I was a little confused. Now, Alex, I really want to get your take on it. Just in general, again, powerful, super awesome woman character that I love, Marjorie Tyrell.
I love myself some Marjorie Tyrell.
So you're a fan?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. So how did you feel about her return this week?
No, I was pretty excited to see her back on screen. She didn't. Besides the ending scene with Loras, she wasn't really doing all that much, just, listening and listening to what's his nuts, the High Sparrow.
What's his nuts?
I mean, it's true. One thing I did find really interesting, and what makes the High Sparrow such good bad guy instead of Bolton, in my opinion, is that he does have some nuance, and that whenever he tells, one of my favorite quotes that I've heard about deception and lying is that the best way to tell the perfect lie is to insert truth in it. So just like how someone said earlier, the cobbler story may be true, even though that, big yarn about, oh, I was at this banquet and everyone was drunk, that sounds like a total fabrication. But that cobbler story seems like it has just enough to be like credible and true. He was also saying some really accurate things about the current system in King's Landing. He was quoting some really he was really nailing home some stuff that I think if you took it out of context and put it on a picture of Bernie Sanders, people would think that Bernie Sanders said it. One thing I really was hearkened upon when I watched this scene was the fact that he kind of cribs off of this really famous theory of discrimination that was developed in the civil rights era about how the purpose of discrimination is to maintain social distance from a group of unworthy people. So that's why people discriminate against others, whether it be race or gender identity, or if you're a little person like Tyrion, like that, you don't want to be associated with the shit or the perceived shame or whatever. So he was like saying all of these things about, what it's like to be poor and all these things that are true. And then it's a total power play. And that's what makes him really unique and interesting versus a quote evil character like Bolton.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think they're there. I think that the extra layers of nuance, and there was some criticism lobbed on our podcast as well about how fastly he rose to power, and I think that's a fair criticism. But as far as a character, I think the High Sparrow is probably one of the more, if not the most fascinating villain on the show, at least top 5, because you're right, he does appear to be such a kindly guy, and the principles that he says he's fighting for are valid. I mean, I think I would back up most of his principles, exactly. Right? So the thing is, he uses that as a weapon to rally people to his cause, and then continues to lie to them and feed them lies to get them fired up and crazy and carving stars into their heads and all that stuff. And I think that's a really, really great point. And that makes him the most dangerous type of political entity, one you don't really, even us as viewers who have more information than the rest of the characters, still don't have a total read on.
Well, and what also makes him pretty dangerous is that he has the power of religion behind him. I mean, what are things that people in our actual current our society have actually fought for? People have fought crusades over, I think my God is right over what your God says is right. And God is the like ultimate trump card. The fact that the High Sparrow says, oh, hey, it's not just that I'm going for a power play, but I've got God, it's like a total...
Well, God supersedes government, right?
Yeah. So it's like he totally trumps everyone else's game. Like, he takes it to a different level that no one else was playing on.
Right. And he doesn't have to lie to the people to rally their support for them to buy into his cause. Which is, again, I do think, despite the fact that his rise to power was very quick, I think it's brilliant on Martin's part and the conception of the character. What would naturally happen after a really bloody civil war that ruined the economy? You have tons of poor people everywhere. Everyone's desperate. The whole country's desperate. So naturally, they are going to flock to an answer, which in this case is the High Sparrow saying it's the politicians and the wealthy who are reckoning and ruining the country. And he's not totally wrong either, guys. So no,
that's what makes him complex.
Very, very interesting. Well, I do appreciate that reading there, Miss Bohannon, very much. So we did get to see Loras briefly. I'm all cool with it. Do you guys...
What?
Nothing. Never mind. So apparently being locked in that prison cell did not help him pray the gay away. So he's still apparently
God
wrestling
damn it.
with his
You were
struggle.
laughing to yourself about that joke before you told it. It's okay. I forgive you, but it was funny.
Well, he's getting in there locked up. Apparently, if you lock gay people in a cell and tell them how wrong they are, that's how they get rid of it, right?
That's the premise of many conversion camps still operating in the United States right now. So,
fact.
Can we talk about this for a second, though? The way they have portrayed Loras in this show, who right now, as far as I can tell, is the only gay person in the show.
Main gay guy, yes.
has been really disappointing. They've really played up a lot of stereotypes. They've made him completely one-dimensional. He's just the big gay guy. Yeah. And have not really giving him his fair due. He's supposed to be like a really good warrior and all of this. And like, we don't see any of that. We just see him being really gay all the time.
Yeah, he is an epic badass. And that's a good point. Like that, they have turned him into kind of a punchline, right?
Yeah, and then this scene just kind of capped it all off. Like, he's a weak, flimsy man who can't handle the same kind of torture that Marjorie's going through, and she's seemingly fine. He's totally broken.
I felt like, I see your point a little bit, but I felt like more of this scene was not about Loras, but was about Marjorie and how them going through the same elements of torture. She is this woman who is standing strong. Again, she's the sister in the scenario where she's helping out her brother, and she's the one that's been able to stand tough through the torturing. I felt like I saw a little bit more of that. I do see your point that a little bit, Austin, how he is sort of become this punchline. He is supposed to be this great warrior fighter.
It's not just this scene. It's like the way they portrayed him throughout the entire series. Yeah, it's just been really disappointing.
No, I actually totally agree with that. I mean, I think the concept of like, I think they call it the refrigerator woman, but if it's a woman, but in this case, refrigerator Loras, where it's just like we take him out whenever like we want to feel sad about one character being sad about someone dying or being tortured or maimed or sexually abused or whatever. So I think that's kind of what's going on here, and it's really unfortunate that it is about the one openly homosexual character. It's not just about. Because we've had like dealings with people being, bisexual or
nobody made fun of nobody made fun of fucking Oberyn Martell.
Yeah,
who is not necessarily gay, he was bisexual.
He was just like sexually voracious, and he would fuck anything that moved. Right. So it's just it is disappointing, and I totally agree with that criticism. Austin, it makes me kind of sad, especially considering that Game of Thrones is progressive in a lot of ways. It's not progressive in many ways. And that's not just because it's set in this time, this kind of... No,
it's still Hollywood. It's the way they choose to portray that character when they write the character, when they use the character. I feel like, especially with the storyline dealing with a religious zealot, they have only further pigeonholed him more as a plot device for this storyline. We hopefully will catch up more with Loras here very, very soon. I want to hit on. I'm going to round up a couple scenes here together because we're running a little short on time. But essentially, we get to see the small council meeting with the Tyrells and the Lannisters. And good call, Austin. Prediction coming true. Again, like you said, credit where credit is due. It looks like, temporarily speaking, the Tyrells and the Lannisters are in fact going to team up together to take down the Sparrows. Now, apparently, the Tyrells are going to march their army to King's Landing as to be kind of used as a kind of a pawn, I guess. And it looks like we are, like you said, in for a really bloody kind of in King's Landing battle, like internally, which would be really interesting.
Is the play here that, and you were alluding to this, I think, that the Tyrells are basically going to do all the heavy lifting, and Tommen's going to back off his army, not get involved in order to like remain pure, basically?
Yes.
Do the whole like Pontius Pilate thing and wash his hands of it?
Yes. Yeah, he wants to keep his hands clean is the idea. They want him to be protected as a figurehead. Mm-hmm. And all of them agree with that about that. Even the Tyrells, that they don't want his name kind of smeared because and honestly, that's the last thing any king in King's Landing needs to worry about is a bad name, because God knows it's already a mess enough.
I want to make one real quick point. They've talked about this walk of shame that Marjorie might have to go do. I don't think that it would work as effectively as it did with Cersei. Because if you guys remember, Marjorie was the one that went out and like talked to people, and all the people loved her, and they would always shout her name. I think she even she would like the poor people. She would go and talk to them, and I think she even fed them at times, if I remember correctly. So I feel like if she were to, if they were trying to make her go over this walk of shame, the crowd would not respond in the same way that they did to Cersei. Now, I'm not necessarily convinced that it's actually going to happen. I think that there's a pretty good shot that it won't happen, but if it were, I don't think it would actually work. I feel like the crowd would try to protect Marjorie in that situation. I don't know if maybe I'm reading too much. What do you guys think about that?
I think you have a point there. I think there would be definitely a lot less anger directed at her, but I do think that people tend to take advantage of an entertainment situation, basically. Same reason people just go to beheadings just to go see it, you know?
Yeah, mob mentality.
Yeah.
Besides I know their goal is stop this second version of the Walk of Shame. I think that it's also, they're wrapped up in this, like this of the era definition of honor where women shouldn't display their bodies so frivolously for anyone besides their partner, husband, lord, etc. So it's not just, oh, we're going to defend her from these crowd people, which I think all of those points you guys made are totally legitimate. Marjorie seems to have a really good affinity for the crowds. But I think they're also defending her honor from being besmirched because she's supposed to be like this virgin, or no, wait, she's married to him. So
not a virgin, but
she's not a
pure.
virgin, but pure, the queen, someone to be respected, very close to, God and divinity as someone that's not in the religious order can be. So I think it's also got a lot of that component to defend her honor.
Let's go ahead and head across the sea over to Mereen. Now, in Mereen, we get to see Tyrion putting on his best Abe Lincoln hat as he tries to negotiate with the Masters and figure out how to make it work both ways. And if you watch the kind of like making of Game of Thrones, inside Game of Thrones, whatever, with Benioff and Weiss following, I used Abe Lincoln intentionally because I think you can definitely see the influence there where he's like, all right, well, I'm going to make a deal with you guys because I understand where you're coming from. And I know, and he's not wrong. Getting rid of slavery overnight didn't exactly work. So let's work out something else. Give us 7 years and we'll pay you for the slaves that are freed from under your belt. Gives you time to get used to the idea, and also it keeps us from flying dragons over your city and lighting you up, which is great. It sounds great, and I didn't even think about it initially. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, of course, naturally. But then you're all like, then you get Grey Worm and Melisandre with Tyrion in the next scene, where the former slaves are like, what, you're basically making a deal with the devil. These guys are evil. They're just going to backstab you later. How dare you negotiate? They're doing the whole, like, we do not negotiate with terrorists kind of mentality. And, kudos to Melisandre and Grey Worm for backing Tyrion up in public, because they clearly were very upset about his decision-making. But as I think it was really great that they backed him up in public to maintain the political authority of their group they've got running while Daenerys is away.
Yeah, I think Tyrion's definitely on a short leash here. But I do think his strategy is going to be far more effective. The problem is going to be if it does mess up, if it does screw up, he's going to lose all his support very, very quickly.
I mean, I definitely think Tyrion's trying to take the correct approach here. We saw that Dany's plan didn't work. And so I definitely think Tyrion has the right mind for this idea. I'm not convinced that it wouldn't work. I think that he understands that these people, yes, they have slaves, but it's all because they make money. And so he offers that that's the approach that he has. And so I think he just understands the greed mentality. He comes from a rich family. He knows people like that. He's used to people like that. So he knows how they work. And while Melisandre and Grey Worm do understand that they are evil, I think Tyrion does understand how their mind works in the sense of wanting the greed aspect. So I do think his plan could work. The question is whether or not if Dany returns, how she's going to handle that, or in that situation, how that's going to play out. So I do think Tyrion has a good plan. I just don't know if it's going to work.
What if Tyrion just ends up ruling Mereen by himself? Like, because Daenerys is clearly going to make the move over to Westeros eventually. What if he just stays there and just kind of hanging out and doing the job himself?
Yeah, I was just discussing this, and we probably should talk about this more a little bit later. But I think
we'll save it for another. I
think
time.
That's not that far off, I guess.
No, I actually agree with that, and I've been thinking that for quite a bit because when Dany gets this Dothraki army, she's not just going to be like, well, I'm going to get back at all those slavers in Slavers Bay. No, she's going to go and fucking go over to Westeros. Jesus, finally.
Well, she can finally get over it, right? And my thing is there's just not enough time for her to go. I mean, it would be like another season for her to go back to Mereen and get that all in order. And there's just not time.
Let's
go ahead and talk a little bit about how Dario and Jorah are on another rescue mission. Thank God this happened. This wrapped up in one episode, guys. I'm just going to say this right now because them chasing Daenerys always felt kind of pointless to me in the first place. But hey, it happened. It was fun. We had some cool back and forth between Dario and Jorah. Jorah's the poor romantic sap, and Dario's, he's Dario giving him shit. So that's fun. I guess if anything's to be taken from their little buddy companionship, it's that Dario now knows that Jorah's got grayscale. So how long is he going to keep that on? Keep a lid on that secret? And I don't know about you. Next time him and Dany go to bed, I'm pretty sure that's not going to stay secret for long. So. Which is also not going to spell good for Jorah's influence on Daenerys anyway. But basically, you see the two of them hanging out. You see it for fun. They go into the city, and apparently Jorah's run out of his nat 20s since his season 5 epic arena duel where he took out like 18 guys. He just got the living crap beat out of him.
Yeah, he. I think if he rolled a 1 on that bluff check, he would have definitely ended up dying. But he definitely rolled a 2, so I don't know how worse that could have gone for him. Despite him perfectly speaking Dothraki, they're like, "Nah, dude, we know you're not."
The bluff check wasn't good, and he definitely rolled a nat miss when he threw the dirt and missed the guy's face entirely.
Pocket sand. Yeah, no, just total.
I don't know. Do you think he was a much better fighter previously? We've seen him do well. He got rocked by the Dothraki guy. Do you think the grayscale is starting to have some sort of weakness to him?
Well, because didn't Dario actually mention, "Hey, old man, are you gonna make it up this hill?" He was giving him shit about him.
I mean, they've been hinting at him not doing well lately, and I'm wondering if the grayscale is physically weakening him now.
The grayscale will do that. It'll tighten his joints. That's why they call it. It's like a stone. That's why they call him the stone man, because you get really stiff and you can't. I can't even think I overlooked that. But yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that because it's a clear night and day difference from stuff we've seen him do even not that long ago.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a bummer for him. I like Jorah a lot. I mean, he has a very kind of narrative, somewhat flat character, but I really dig him and respect him a lot. But I mean, if any quote unquote main character is not going to make it out of this season, it's probably going to be him. Because that grayscale is a ticking time bomb, and knowing him, he's going to do something really damn noble or something before.
He's not going to die from grayscale. He's already
going to die from saving Dany.
Something.
He's going to give her a kiss and then go die. That's probably what's going to happen. Now. On to the more interesting bit, though. We're going to close out this week's recap by talking about Dany. And so, what do we got? Guys, what a scene. What a scene. So apparently, I don't know how staged this was, but Dany luring these cows all into this room. I don't know if she did it or if Jorah and Dario did it or someone lit that room up with alcohol or some type of a flammable liquid.
It looked like there was definitely something soaking the wood there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why that was to discern if she was going to go with the
stay with the Cal and the old Cal's home.
Yeah, the old Cal's
at least he's home.
Yeah. So she was going to see if that was their verdict on if she was going to live with the widows or not. But yeah, no, I think the way that thing just lit up, it definitely was soaked in something.
Pretty epic, though. Brilliant. In one fell swoop, she had the entire leadership of all of the cows in one room and then killed them all. Now, we talked about this being a possibility of her somehow taking over the army earlier this season.
We
did not expect it to happen like this fast. Holy crap.
Yeah, well, I think, you know what? I think we kind of sucked at this, honestly. I'll call it for what it is. I personally know I predicted, well, Jorah and Dario are just coming in and sneak her out, or the dragons will swoop in and save her. But she wasn't saved by anybody, really, in this situation. She did it entirely on her own, by herself, like a grown-ass woman.
Thank God.
Yeah, that's what I actually really loved about this episode is because the very first scene of the episode is, these two men coming in thinking they're going to save this woman. They've got a plan, and it's going to go exactly the way they want. They meet up with Dany, and she says, no, that's not how it's going to go down. And then the end of the episode, we have Dany, which for the first time, I think she is killing all these men, but from her own hands. Her dragons aren't doing it. She's not ordering her men to go and do it. This is her doing. She did it by herself. She didn't need anyone else to help her, which is awesome. Again, we've seen all throughout this entire episode that these women are the strong characters, and they're overtaking they're in charge relationship with the men that they're dealing with, which I think Game of Thrones has always done a great job of creating strong female characters. And so I love how this episode is just like bookended with that. It starts with these guys who have this plan, and then this woman who says, that's not a good plan. This is the good plan. And it goes her way. And so it's a really awesome moment for her. I think it's great for her character. My first reaction to this was not as strong as it is right now. The more I thought about it, the more I really did enjoy the way that they handled this scene. And so I think for her character, it's a big stepping stone. She's not relying on anyone else. It's her own doing, and she's taking responsibility for her actions. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this scene a whole lot.
I love this scene as a huge Dany fangirl. I always have believed in her, wanting her to reclaim her badassery from season 1. Have you really not seen her a badass?
She was a badass at the end of season 1, and then she was a badass in season 3 when she used the dragons to light the Masters on fire and took that Unsullied army. That was pretty badass too.
Okay, so we get intermittent badassery, but we just haven't seen it in a while. So kind of this is a really great return to form, really hearkening back to that first, the end of season 1, where you have her emerging unscathed from the flames. We have this similar, we have the similar scene again. And then we get everyone worshiping her as if she were a goddess, because she kind of is in this world, and she's going to take all of Westeros, guys.
So let me ask you this question then. So she is. I think we all know that she's going to eventually go to Westeros. But I personally, assuming she has control of this entire Dothraki army, which I'm pretty sure is the case now, Dothraki don't live in cities. She's not going to lead them back to Mereen. She's not going to go fight through Slaver's Bay again. I'm wondering, personally, if she just abandons Slaver's Bay at this point, says, Tyrion, it's all yours, man. Have fun.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think that's what she's got left at this point. I mean, she doesn't want to deal with these tiny machinations of Sons of the Harpy and like the slavers. Like that's, all the masters and everything like that. I mean, it's really interesting in the scene where she's accusing these Khals of being small men arguing over their tiny villages and which women they can fuck and all this stuff. Well, I mean, in some ways, she's been dealing with these small problems herself. She hasn't been conquering anything lately. Right. She's been dealing with, all these people are killing my people and they're trying to take back stuff that I already had, and all the ships in the harbor are on fire. I mean, it's just like, she's been dealing with these problems herself. And so she's like, nah, man, burn the patriarchy down. We're just going to pack it up, leave everyone, and we're just going to go take what's mine. They
hinted at it throughout the entire episode, where constantly they're being asked, when is she going to return? When is she coming back? And I honestly think the answer is she's not. She's not going to be back in Mereen.
I don't think so either. I think if anything, she might go back to get people to leave. Like, I don't think I really do think she's out. And that hopefully this has been hopefully Slaver's Bay was a very painful and long gestating lesson for her to learn, because she did have a big ass army before she decided to conquer slavers in Slaver's Bay, with her Unsullied and what Dothraki she had left, and that didn't pan out for her. So hopefully she keeps her eyes on the prize and just heads on over to Westeros. I'm really excited to see Dany back. I really hope the momentum stays up with her, because I like Dany when she's doing stuff. I do. It's whenever she gets kind of she gets very contemplative, where she decides and lazy and comfortable, where I get really upset and frustrated with her.
She's a better conqueror than a queen.
She's a liberator, not
politician,
empress, or a politician. Yeah.
So she's the muscle, Jon Snow's on the throne, and Littlefinger's the political mastermind. All right.
Yeah, he could be the hand of the king.
Right. All right, guys. Well, thank you. This was a great discussion, talking about the Book of a Stranger. We talked a lot about the themes throughout, talking about brothers and sisters, and the idea of family having some real weight to it. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point too much. I don't want to get repetitive, but did you guys have any other big takeaways from the episode this week as far as like kind of the themes and ideas that play into the larger arc? Alex?
Yeah, I find that a huge theme that's not just occurring in Game of Thrones this week, but kind of rippling across our popular culture, at least in America, is that of a civil war, of a nation to its breaking point ideologically, and that the only way we can rectify anything at this point is an outward demonstration of violence. While Game of Thrones has always been a violent show on the brink of a battle or two, we've always had one physical altercation arc going on at a time. So we have Robb Stark versus the Lannisters, Stannis versus the Boltons, but not like this kind of bubbling where we're going to get every army in Westeros and this planet going at each other at the same time, which is about to happen, because we're about to have every faction on the brink of a life or death altercation with each other. It's interesting, although I don't think intentional, that this is happening within the year that Captain America Civil War and Batman versus Superman are also released, and also a very contentious and ideologically vehement political election. It seems like this is, while all of these things were kind of in the pipeline and written before all this stuff, and I don't think it's purposeful at all, but I do think it's an interesting take on our current society and culture that these themes keep emerging in these major works of popular culture and television.
And it's funny that it's always like it always starts with an ideological difference, which, I mean, especially at least here in the good old US of A, it seems like the ideological divide of what this country is constantly shifting further and further away from each other, which is sad. But I do think that's interesting as a way for our society to work those themes out in fiction, of course, naturally. And no, I think you're totally right. And I do find it very interesting that the idea of war being the only answer to resolving our ideological issues is problematic and on play in Game of Thrones, and I think Game of Thrones has many times critiqued that and shown how it just leads to more violence. It's a cycle over and over and over again. So that's a great point, Alex.
All while ignoring some of the bigger problems like the coming massive weather changes in both the world of Westeros and ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all bickering amongst ourselves while never really addressing the actual issues.
Tyrion's the one that doesn't immediately turn to violence. He's the one that's, trying to be diplomatic about the situation. He's the one that's trying to resolve it as peacefully as possible. He's the one person in the entire episode, I think, that I can think of that he doesn't immediately want to go and fight and kill someone. He wants to try to resolve it peacefully. So we just need more Tyrion, guys.
All really great thoughts, guys. I have some ideas of my own, but you know what? We're running short on time, so we will have to get to those next week. I think the same themes are going to continue to play out, so I think we're good. Thank you so much, listeners, for tuning into this week's episode. We're going to very briefly give you a little tease for next week's episode, The Door. But first, I want to give everyone a chance to let you know where they can find us on the social media. Ms. Alexandra Bohannon, if people want to follow you online, where can they find you doing your thing?
Sure, you guys can follow me. Guys and gals, you can follow me on Twitter at Alex V Brohannon, and that is BROHANNON. That is my last name with a portmanteau of bro at the front of it. You can just follow me on Twitter. I tweet about pop culture, politics, Game of Thrones, any of these things. And of course, you can also find our parent website, Good Trash Media, at good_trash as well. We have a lot of great offerings on the Twitter and our parent website, goodtrashmedia.com.
Yeah, I mean, just with this episode, we mentioned 2 films we've reviewed recently. I mean, you mentioned Captain America Civil War, actually, Batman versus Superman 3, and you also mentioned Green Room at the top of the episode.
Yep.
Really great movie you guys should check out. We have reviews
except for Batman.
We have, those were all great podcast discussions, not all great movies. Where you can find all reviews for those films on goodtrashmedia.com, and reach out to us there or hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia. And lastly, I want to let you guys know the only reason we are able to continue to put out more and more content for this website is from listeners like you who contribute to us through patreon.com. If you like the cast Beyond the Wall and you wanted to continue to see us do more episodes in the future years. If you want to see Good Trash Media do more stuff like the Cast Beyond the Wall, please head on over to patreon.com/GTM. We've got some really cool live shows coming up later this year, and we really, really need all the support we can get. So contributing through our Patreon page at patreon.com/GTM is the best way to help us out with that. Now, Austin Lucari, if people want to keep up with you online, where can they find you at?
If you want to find me, just add me on Twitter. It's AC Lucari, Lucari. Don't really post a lot there, but if you have any questions or feedback or tell me I'm a moron, then you can do that there.
Tweet at him your Samuel Love. Daniel Stoll, where can people find you online?
They can find me at Daniel Stoll 23, DANIEL STULL 23. And I'd love to chat about Game of Thrones with anybody that wants to.
All right, fantastic. And you can always find me at Big Cal Kenobi 91. I think I'm on the verge, guys. I think I'm about to change that handle. Maybe. If you guys want to stick around, we're going to just kind of quickly talk about the episode The Door. Very briefly, one to two sentences. What are we most excited about next week? Austin Lucari.
I'm excited to get back into some more Bran scenes. A little disappointed that it doesn't look like it's going to finish up the Tower of Joy.
Boo. Daniel Stoll, how about you? What are you thinking about? Or what are you most excited to see in The Door?
I'm surprised Austin didn't say this. Kingsmoot.
Because I knew you had the Greyjoy love in your heart, Daniel. And you would say it for me.
I've got the joy down in my heart. Where?
Down in my heart?
Where?
Oh, God. We all grew up in... Yeah, okay.
We all grew up in the Midwest and
exactly.
have the same cultural touchstones.
Yay for us.
Yeah.
Alex, what are you most excited to see next week?
I'm always excited to see my girl Arya Stark. I'm pretty excited to see now that she's unblind, what can we do with her? Because I was really getting very tired of her just getting beat up by that. I just call her that bitch in my head, which is not very nice. Like her just like beating the crap out of her with those stabs. I'm really excited about that. And of course, to watch just the further machinations. I feel like all of the pieces of the plot have been put in place and now it's just like shoving them on because, we feel like there's some forward momentum now.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought too, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier this season on episode 2. I was like, yeah, this is all eventful, but you realize this is all just putting the pawns into place so they can all move forward, do some really crazy stuff. I'm really excited about seeing what Jon Snow and Baelish do. I of course, naturally, but I mean, I'm seriously, I feel like there's a lot of really rich potential for this North storyline, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. So. You'll have to find out, next listener, when you tune in with us next week when we go back beyond the wall.